Calidus Resources, we're a gold development company in the Pilbara of Western Australia, currently building a stage one of Warrawoona, which is 90,000 ounce per annum gold operation, very low all-in sustaining cost of 1,300 Aussie an ounce. Once that's bedded down, we'll be looking to expand to around 130,000 ounces per annum with our stage two works, which is the inclusion of the high-grade blue spec mine, which generates a very healthy 140 to 150 million Aussie EBITDA per annum. In the meantime, in parallel, we're exploring. We see a lot of potential for extending that mine life of 8 years, and a lot of greenfields work to be done around the properties.
Beautiful. Dave, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. We're calling up because last time we spoke, I think it was beginning of December, you just agreed to take $110 million from Macquarie, and it's taken a long time, but you've just taken the first 25 million of that at the beginning of the month. Wow. What took so long?
Well, so with the debt, you obviously don't want to draw it straight up because you're paying interest. So we spend our equity first and then draw the debt when we need to draw the debt. So that's why we did that. First drawdown of 25 million. That'll keep us going a couple of months. We're in sort of the high burn rate out on site with construction and ordering, etc. And then we'll start to see less chunky amounts being drawn down in a couple of months.
Brilliant. Okay, so there were no issues. It's just that's normal part of the course. You don't want to be paying too much interest whilst you're waiting to start the meaningful construction. So does that mean you've spent all remaining equity? Are you right up against the wire on that front?
Yeah, so we obviously have a cost to complete a project, which is made up of debt and equity, and the cost minus the debt is the equity you need to put in. It's not necessarily the amount of cash the company has. So we work out what that amount is, plus finance charges, et cetera, and we expend that first before we start drawing debt. So in other words, yes, we believe we've put in enough equity. The company obviously still has cash sitting behind it to do things like exploration and studies and make sure we've got enough if there was any extra contingencies needed. But we've put in what we need to put in, and the debt should see us complete the project.
Can you break down the equity spend then? So what have you allocated to where, given that the exploration component is quite important to you?
Yeah, so look, being blunt, we have to pour gold on time, on budget, and make sure we're making good money. That is going to make or break the company in the next 12 months. It's not going to be exploration holes. So we're doing a lot more greenfields than we've ever done before. We've always looked just around Klondike. So we've got a team of 2 in our regional geology team out mapping and exploring around the area. We're doing stream sediment sampling and some low spend exploration, gathering data, working out where we want to drill next. Our exploration budget for the year is a couple of $1 million. On top of that, we'll be doing drilling into blue spec, a part of the feasibility there. That's that high grade 16 gram mine we recently bought. So we'll be putting some holes into that very shortly. And that's an extra spend. And I think we've got about 3 million budgeted for the blue spec feasibility and drilling.
So it's really interesting the way that different companies approach their strategy. So you were saying, because a lot of companies that come on here, they go, oh, we want to go from 1 million ounce to 1.5 to 2 million to 3. That's the way they drive value for their shareholders in their opinion, right? You're saying actually the best thing that we can do is get into production as soon as possible, and then we'll worry about building up the resource on top of the 1.5, 1.7, whatever it is today. Is that the way you're approaching it?
Yeah, look, I think at some point you have to press the button. What are you here for? Is it just to drill, or is it to build a mine and a company? We figured we got to the tipping point where by drilling out more, it wasn't going to change the size of the plant. It was only going to increase life. Every dollar we raise in equity now for that drilling is dilutionary to shareholders. So rather use cash from operations. So stop the spend on drilling, build, and then use the cash flow from the operations to do that future drilling. And at the end of the day, in theory, you should have a better NPV per share for shareholders.
Right. So the resource, whether extension of life of mine, the size of the resource, that'll come later. It's all eyes on the prize, which is getting into production by Q2 next year. That's number one priority.
Correct. Yep. So we've gone out publicly saying in Q2 next year we will be pouring gold, and we've met all our targets to date. And we certainly intend to meet that one.
Right. So it's tight but manageable. Hopefully no weather issues. Hopefully no issues in the market. You're all good.
Yeah. So look, there's challenges at the moment, and we're obviously working to make sure that they don't affect us. We've had a delay on our mill motor. It gets manufactured by Toshiba in India. With COVID there, they've been shut up and they've only just reopened, so it's delayed it, but we ordered it so far in advance it doesn't affect our timing. There's been a lot of effort by especially our main contractor, GR Engineering, to forward order steel, rebar, mechanicals, because there is cost pressures, inflation pressures, availability of just raw goods, steel, rebar pressures. So, they've managed that very well, and, we've spent quite a bit of money up front to help them, mitigate those risks. But it's all on track, yes.
So with regards to the debt from Macquarie, is any of it conditional? If, say, things do slip by a couple of months, you just draw down on the debt. That you're not going to be stopped by Macquarie because some extraneous event has slowed you down. They're not going to be concerned that you've slipped by 2 months. They'll still let you draw money down if you needed to ahead of schedule.
Look, every time you do a drawdown with any bank, there's what's called a cost to complete that you do, where you look at the forward forecast, look at where you are, and make sure with that debt you've got enough money. And if there's an independent technical expert that checks off on all of this, and if they believe that the debt alone is not enough, then the company is required to put more cash in to make sure that completion can occur. And that's why I say we've put the cash in for our equity component that we believe we need, but the company still has cash if it was to ever get to that. Now, we are 30% of the way through the spend now. So we're quite advanced, and, we certainly don't believe that that's going to be an issue.
Okay. We better get to the boys' toys, but you showed me a picture before we started. Well, the video, actually. I quite liked it. So I thought we'd add it on the show. Do you want to share your screen and maybe show people what you're doing? Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Look at that, indeed. This is site about a week or so ago. Lovely Warrawoona. This is in the distance is the hills where the ore body is, but this is where a lot of the activity is taking place, is building this plant. And I've just got to move to the side so I can see my buttons. I've got it on another screen. There we go. So if we look at that, what we've got is the crusher foundations going in here. This is a reclaim pad, so we can drive loaders up and throw it into a bin, where there'll be a conveyor taking ore along from the crusher into the mill. And these are the mill footings here. From there, it goes through a gravity circuit, the ore, and then it goes into these tanks. And we actually tweeted and LinkedIn and whatever today, these are starting to get put one on top of the other and coming out of the ground, which is good. Then we're going to have the power station here, the LNG storage, the diesel storage down this way. This is the raw water pond. That's all lined now, ready to take water. Then we'll have McMahon's, our open pit contractor. They'll have their workshops and what's called their go bay and dead bay, where they put their machinery. That'll be here, and a couple of dongers beneath we call this Dean's tree, who's very keen on saving this tree. That will be our admin buildings there. We're pretty well finished the bulk earthworks there. I'll just speed this up. We'll zip around. This is going out, looking down the access road. And then, just if we come back to here, we can see beyond the tower, the camp. It went, anyway, sneaky in the background, and away we go. So, look, plenty happening. We've got a bit of dust in the background. That's the tails dam that we're building down there as well. So finish the bulk earthworks, now really into the steel and concrete. Tails dam underway, and shortly we'll be starting the mining of the ore body to put up on the ROM pad.
Brilliant, look at that. And so a few things, that there's a sort of big moat type structure around this. What was that?
Yeah. So that's a cut-off trench. So we are in a cyclone-prone area, so we do get big dumps of rain, and this catchment area needs to flow. And you want to keep clean water out of the process plant, so you put a big diversion drain around the plant to capture that, and then it sheds it off into the creeks, and it's not contaminated, because any water we do have, this is one here, it doesn't really show it. We've got another big sediment pond off to the right. We've got to capture all the water that falls on the process plant site to make sure, all the sediment, any contaminants get withheld on site, whereas we want to divert the clean water away from site.
Got it. And just in terms of infrastructure, so it's a really good video. It just shows you are in the middle of nowhere. So what's the how do you get water? Where's the power come from? And do you drive in there?
Yeah, so Marble Bar sits just over the top of, that's Warrawoona Peak, probably about 30 kilometres away. It's a thriving township of 150 people on a good day, maybe 200. So that's where our communication link goes back to. There's a road that comes out that's a public road to within 7 kilometres, and we put an access road in last year. If I drag back to this view here, you can see, I need to stop this. Let's stop. This pipeline coming in, that actually comes from a bore out in the ranges on the shear. That's where we get our construction water. But for the main plant, we will be installing a pipeline from out in these flats. There's an old tin mining area out there, 40 kilometres away, with lots of old bores. So we've re-drilled those bores, and we'll equip a pipeline to bring the water in 40 kilometres.
And is that one of those sort of like fixed pipelines, or is one of those sort of, you kind of got a flexible, 4-inch?
Yeah, they're called poly pipes. And they sort of come in these ones come in 100-metre rolls. You roll out and weld them together, and off you go.
It's cheap. I guess where I'm going, it's cheap. It's not going to be 40 kilometres. It's
cheap, and they're white because of the heat. We are in Australia's hottest town. So normally it's black poly, but if you lay out black poly pipe, you can imagine after 40 kilometres of water coming out, you're not going to be showering in the village or anything else. So, we do need to keep an eye on some of those things with the heat that happens out in that part of the world.
Fantastic. Well, that is exciting. So this is beginning to be the sum total of where the money's gone to date, looks like. And I'm just going to see some of the other things here. So how big's the camp going to be? How many people are going to be on site?
So the camp is fully complete. We've got 240 rooms in that camp. We've put a little bit of extra money in there. There is, if you follow Australian mining at all, there is quite a labour squeeze out here at the moment. So you need to make your camp attractive. So, we've put a bit of extra money into the camp. We've upgraded the comms so everyone can have their own Netflix streaming at night and they call home on data. We've upgraded the food package to make sure it's good gyms, good whatnot. So that's all been put in place, knowing full well that labour is tight and we need to make it an attractive place to work.
It's interesting you say that. I don't think people understand the need for that. I was talking to someone in Canada last week, and they're saying drill crews. He was using 3 drill crews, so 3 shifts per day. But because some of the excitement and froth in Newfoundland, people were paying more money, so he's actually lost the 3 shifts, and he's down to 1 shift per day. You got to pay. Or when times are good, you got to pay. So
Fortress Australia, we've got our borders up because we get 1 case of COVID and we shut down. And the biggest single issue is there's no migration, no immigration. And the mining industry has certainly relied on immigration to help out. And we're going through a commodity boom. Iron ore's booming, copper's booming, nickel's booming, lithium's booming, gold's booming. Everything's booming. So the sector is just alive in WA, which is fantastic in many ways. But we're now getting to that point, especially, across the whole spectrum, I suppose, that labour's getting tight, skills are getting tight. And, we're seeing wage increases. We're seeing inflation. It's real.
Yeah, it's starting to be noticeable, certainly on materials as well. So with people, where were people coming in from in terms of these external mining skill sets that you're looking for?
Oh, from all over the world. So a lot from Europe, Africa, India. In particular, I'd say would be the main areas of immigration. New Zealand, we're sort of in the same bubble, so they can still come in, but there's a lot of Kiwis working in the mining industry here.
So how does that work? So if they've got to come in and do 2 weeks of isolation in a hotel, which they've got to pay for, presumably you don't want to be the company paying for the 2 weeks plus the hotel and then finally go and get a job somewhere else.
Yeah, so, firstly, from a New Zealand point of view, there's a COVID travel bubble here, so that's fine. They don't need to do quarantine. But from anyone else, the problem is you can't, I suppose, apart from like we're doing now, a Zoom call, you can't really get to meet someone and make sure it's all going to work out. So, yeah, you'd sign them on, you'd bring them into quarantine, but we're obviously trying to find people we can go and touch and feel in the flesh, so to speak, and make sure that they're going to be a good fit for what we're after, and go from there. So, trying to bring in new labour and people that are happy to go into quarantine for 2 weeks. It's problematic.
Well, you don't mind if you're getting paid. Can we talk about Blue Spec? Because we sort of touched upon it last time out, and I know you've there's sort of $12.5 million to fund the new Blue Spec. Can you tell us what's going on there? Because obviously it's part of the phase 2 development component.
So yeah, we released a scoping study at the same time as purchasing the final portion to take us to 100%. So what we're planning to do is first gold, April, May next year, let's call it, bed down Warrawoona for 6 months, get through all the bank completion tests, make sure that's humming, and then we can press the button. We'll have finished the feasibility at that point on Blue Spec. So keep in mind, Blue Spec, 220,000 ounces at 16 grams, whereas we're putting 1.2 grams through the plant. So, it's a step change in grade. So we'd like to get into that as soon as we can, but we need to bed down phase 1. So once we're in Blue Spec, it'll take a couple of years to get fully up and running because it's an underground that really starts 300 metres down. But it will add 40,000 ounces, give or take, per annum to our production. That will, I think, from a cash flow, it adds about 150 million pre-tax to the project cash flow, versus the cost is 20 all up to buy it. So, good return versus the purchase cost, and just takes us into a lot more meaningful producer size.
Yeah, you're sort of up around 130,000 ounces. Are you? I think I read somewhere you're also consolidating some of the land packages around there. Have you got everything you need now?
Super excited about that, and that's what the regional team, a lot of the focus is on, is especially to the west of Blue Spec. There's 8 kilometres of strike that's never seen a drill hole. To the east, there's drilling and there's known smaller deposits, so we know it's a mineralised corridor. We know where the shear is. We've done all the sort of geophysics with tracking styles of mineralisation through gravity and magnetics and radiometrics. So now we're getting on the ground doing stream sediment sampling. That will allow us to focus in on some areas for some detailed soils, and then hopefully drill and hopefully find some shallower Blue Specs in the 8 kilometres to the west of there.
Do you don't owe any more money, do you?
No.
Done. All good.
No.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. And just I know you sort of said you've allocated a little bit of money for exploration and in its widest context, but I've also looked at something that talks about doing a little bit of infill drilling along the way too. So is that happening still, or are you going to wait till June?
So we're doing at Warrawoona, at Klondike, the open pit, we're doing grade control drilling as part of the getting ready for operations. So, that's really not that announceable. But we are doing 6 diamond holes into Blue Spec for metallurgical and geotechnical work for the feasibility study. So that's obviously going to target the ore body, and we would hope to see some pretty sensational hits coming out of that, remind people how good this ore body is. So that will, we'll put out an announcement shortly when that drilling is actually kicked off. But, we're looking forward to actually drilling that ore body ourselves and getting that information and getting some of those results out.
Nice. Okay. Well, Well, actually, I tell you what, there were a few questions sent in actually with regards to processing in the region, just generally in terms of what
Right.
you're going to be able to do, and maybe because there are a few sort of well-known names around in and around you. But what is the setup in the region?
Right. So our nearest, there's 2 mills within 100 kilometres of us. There is Novo at Mulligine, who have started up their Beatons Creek deposit through the old Millennium plant that they refurbished. And, that seems to be hitting its straps recently. It was a bit of a slow start, but seems to be getting better. So they're about 75, 80 k's away as a crow flies. But that mill's full with their own material. Bamboo Creek sits to the northeast of it. It's a small little underground that's got a mill there, but really not doing anything. And then you've got Capricorn, who are about to pour first gold in the next few weeks, market cap over 700 million versus our less than 200 million, so a little plug there. They're about to pour first gold, and they are south of Newman, so that's probably 300-400 kilometres to the south of us, Pilbara being quite a large area. And then you've got De Grey out to the west, who are still just obviously drilling for the resource, and that's 200 k's to the west of us. So huge activity. The Pilbara is where the new mines are going in WA. It's where the big ore bodies are being found. It's sort of a bit of a forgotten child that sat up there for quite a while, and now you've had all this infrastructure from the iron ore coming in. It's opened it up a bit more. There's some new geological models to pursue, and it's a place to be.
Yeah, definitely seems to be hotting up around there. It's interesting. And so even like smaller sort of stranded assets have got a chance then?
Yeah, look, stranded assets have a chance. It's certainly something that anyone with a plant looking to add life would certainly be interested in. But it obviously takes two to tango. We've certainly done all we want to do until we get value in our share price.
Right. Okay. Well, Dave, nice update. Thanks for sharing that video. That's exciting when you can look at stuff like that starting to happen. All on schedule. Stay in touch. Let us know when you actually are nearing production. It'd be pretty exciting times. It's going to go pretty quick by the looks of it then, quite frankly, if you're aiming for
I can't believe it's
Q2.
June already. It's going to go in the blink of an eye, I think. It's been, when you think we listed in June 2017, and before we had that, it was, had it for maybe a year before. So it's happened pretty quickly. We're talking 4 years pretty well to the day since listing, and we are fully into construction, and less than 5 years since listing, we'll be pouring gold for only had a few 100,000 ounces on it at the start. So, pretty happy and proud for the company on what we've achieved so far.